The wind howled over the high desert plains of Nevada, brushing dust against weathered fence posts and abandoned road signs. But the man didn't notice. His truck rolled to a slow stop, engine humming quietly as he squinted at the figure far off in the brush. At first, it looked like a shadow or a twisted tree stump. But then it moved. A flick of the tail, a tremble in the sun. A horse, alone, skeletal, and still. He stepped out slowly. "Hey there, girl." The mare didn't bolt. Her eyes, deep and dark like polished glass, met his as though she'd been waiting. "Something's not right," he muttered. She was clearly a Mustang, wild-born by the way her legs were scarred and her mane tangled with bits of sagebrush. But there was no herd, no brand, no water for miles. Her ribs jutted beneath a sunburned coat, and one hind leg trembled with fatigue. He took a cautious step forward. "It's okay. You're safe now." She didn't run. Instead, she limped one step toward him. Just one, then collapsed into the dust. He rushed forward, falling to his knees beside her. "No, no, no, don't give up on me now." There was something fierce behind those eyes. Even as her body gave way, her gaze never left his. He wasn't a vet. He wasn't even a rancher. Just a guy passing through on the way to scatter his father's ashes in the hills. But in that moment, everything changed. He couldn't leave her. He pulled out his thermos and poured the last of his water into his hand, holding it to her lips. She drank. Desperate, trembling sips. That night, he didn't go to the cabin. He made a makeshift camp beside her, wrapping his jacket over her body as the desert cold crept in. The stars wheeled above them like ancient guardians. He named her Whisper. The next morning, with a strained groan and trembling legs, Whisper stood. She followed him. Not like a trained horse, but like someone who had made a decision. Back in town, people stared. "That mare, she's from the Eastern Range. Thought she was dead months ago." The vet shook his head. "There's no chip, no brand. And that scar on her belly? That's not from any injury I've seen on the wild ones." The man frowned. "Then where'd she come from?" "She was bred." The vet looked him dead in the eye. "She's not wild. Someone put her out there. And judging by her condition, they meant for her not to come back." The truth hit like a punch. She hadn't just been abandoned. She'd been discarded. But why? What was she hiding? The man, whose name was Eli, rented a small plot just outside town. An old corral, half fallen, and a leaky water tank. It wasn't much, but it was enough for Whisper to recover. She never let anyone else near her. But with Eli, she began to soften. At night, he'd sit by the fence and hum old songs his father used to sing. Whisper would stand beside him, eyes closed, head low. One night, under a rising moon, he noticed something strange. She didn't lie down like most horses. Always alert, always looking east. Eli didn't press. He just kept showing up, feeding her, cleaning her wounds, watching the weight return to her body and the shine to her coat. Then, one morning, Whisper wasn't in the pen. Panic shot through him. He searched the property, heart thudding in his chest. Whisper. Then he saw the fence, broken at the far edge. Tracks in the dirt. But she hadn't run. Because there, standing just beyond the hill, was Whisper. And beside her, a foal. Eli's breath caught. A small, trembling colt, no more than a few days old, nestled against her side. She wasn't running away. She'd gone to bring someone back. Eli stepped slowly toward them, hands raised. Whisper didn't flinch. The foal blinked at him, wobbly but curious. Whisper nickered once. Soft, protective. And that's when Eli realized. Whisper hadn't been alone in those hills. She'd been hiding. Not just from humans, but from danger. And she'd chosen him. A man with nothing but a beat-up truck, a broken heart, and a promise to scatter ashes. Somehow she'd known. But what had she been running from? Who had bred her, then left her to die? And why, even now, did she never sleep through the night? The answer lay buried in the sands. But Eli had made his choice. Whatever it took, he would protect them both. Even if it meant facing the secret Whisper carried. Because sometimes family finds you. And sometimes, the wildest hearts are the ones who trust you with their truth. End of section 1. Waiting for your command to write section 2. Eli knew something wasn't right when he spotted the same black SUV pass by his fence 3 times in 2 days. It was dusty, unmarked, but too clean for the rural backroads. No rancher he knew drove something like that. And every time it passed, Whisper would go stiff, ears pricked, eyes locked on the road until it vanished. "Who are you hiding from, girl?" Eli whispered, brushing her mane one quiet morning. Whisper had always been wary of strangers. But this was different. This was fear. He installed a camera near the gate, just in case. The next night, it caught the SUV slowing to a crawl. The headlights dimmed. Then it turned and drove off again. Eli's stomach churned. He took the footage to the sheriff, but she gave him a tired look. "Unless someone's trespassing or breaking a law, there's nothing I can do." "But the mare, Whisper, she reacts every time they show up." The sheriff raised an eyebrow. "A horse reacting isn't evidence, Eli." So he did what he could. Reinforced the fence. Moved Whisper and her foal, whom he'd named Dusty, closer to the barn, under cover. He stayed up nights, flashlight in one hand, radio in the other. For weeks, nothing happened. Then one night, Dusty went missing. The pen gate was wide open. Eli's heart pounded as he sprinted into the field, calling the foal's name again and again. Whisper screamed, a panicked, guttural sound that chilled the air. Then, from the tree line, came a whinny. Dusty, shaking, scared but alive. He was tangled in a length of wire, cutting into one hind leg. Eli freed him, but the damage was done. Blood dripped into the sand. Whisper stood guard the whole time, her body between Eli and the trees. Someone had tried to take him, and Whisper had fought them off. Eli reported it. This time, the sheriff sent a deputy. He found boot prints, a tire track, a broken syringe. "Whoever it was," the deputy muttered, "they weren't trying to help." Eli nodded. "I need to know who owned her." He took a blood sample to the state's equine registry. Days passed. Then the call came. "She's not in the wild registry," the voice said. "But there is a genetic match on file. Whisper was bred by a facility called Genequine Solutions." "What is that? A ranch?" "No, it's a biotech firm." The air seemed to leave the room. He looked up Genequine. What he found made his stomach twist. Their site was glossy. Professional. All about performance, breeding, precision genetics. But deeper in the articles, he found what he was looking for. Experimental embryo programs. Designer foals for elite clients. Selective traits. Speed. Obedience. Resilience. Horses bred in labs. He called the number listed. It rang once, then disconnected. That night, the SUV returned. But this time, it didn't pass by. It stopped at the gate. Eli was already there, shotgun resting in the crook of his arm. Whisper and Dusty stood behind him in the barn, hidden by shadows. A man stepped out. Tall, trim beard, expensive jacket. "You're Eli Harper?" "Depends who's asking." The man smiled, all teeth. "That horse belongs to us. She was lost during a transport. It's a miracle you found her. She's not lost. She's free. She's property." Eli didn't blink. "Got a warrant?" The smile disappeared. "No, but let's not make this complicated." Eli took a step forward. "You already did." The man narrowed his eyes. "This isn't over." He left, tires kicking up gravel, dust rising into the black night. Eli didn't sleep. He sat in the barn, back to the wall, Whisper beside him, Dusty curled at her hooves. He looked at Whisper. "You were bred to be something else. Sold. Controlled. But you ran. And you protected him." Whisper nuzzled his shoulder. He made his choice. The next day, he drove 3 hours to Reno, met with an old friend who worked as an animal welfare attorney. They filed for emergency custody, collected affidavits from the vet, the sheriff, even neighbors. It wasn't easy, but the footage helped. The blood test, the attack, the boot prints. It bought them time. Eli reinforced the barn with security cameras, lights, and motion sensors. Whisper never left Dusty's side. Every time a car passed, she still looked up. But there was something steadier in her now. Trust. One morning, Eli woke to find Dusty trotting for the first time, awkward but joyful, across the paddock. Whisper followed close behind, careful and proud. And for a moment, it felt like peace. Until a letter arrived. From Genequine Solutions. Notice of property recovery, it read. They were suing, trying to reclaim Whisper and Dusty as corporate assets. Eli stared at the paper in disbelief. He wasn't rich. He didn't have a fancy legal team. Just a Mustang, her foal, and the truth. But he wouldn't back down. Because Whisper had given everything to protect her child. Now it was his turn. He folded the letter slowly. Whisper watched him from the corral, the wind stirring her mane. "We're not running anymore," he said. "We fight. The case would be messy. public, and dangerous. But Whisper wasn't just a horse anymore. She was proof that something was wrong, and someone would go to great lengths to keep it hidden. End of Section 2. Waiting for your command to begin Section 3. The courtroom was smaller than Eli expected. No sweeping drama, no crowds of reporters. Just polished floors, pale walls, and a few benches filled with strangers holding clipboards. Whisper and Dusty weren't there, of course. They were at home, safe under the care of a volunteer vet who had offered to help after reading about the case online. Eli had filed the injunction just in time. For now, they were protected by a restraining order. But everything hinged on today. Across the aisle sat the Genequine team. 3 attorneys in gray suits, a woman in a navy blazer with a gold company pin, and the same man who'd visited Eli at the ranch. He met Eli's eyes with a look of irritation, not concern. Like this was a waste of his time. Eli's attorney, Natalie Reyes, leaned over. Remember, we don't have to prove everything. Just enough to raise reasonable doubt about their claims. Let's take it step by step. Eli nodded, but his palms were slick with sweat. The hearing began. Genequine's lead lawyer stood. Your Honor, our client's property. Specifically, a mare bred through proprietary genetic enhancement and her subsequent offspring, was unlawfully detained by Mr. Harper. We intend to recover both animals and secure damages for the delay in their return. Eli's stomach turned. Whisper wasn't a car or a stolen television. She was alive. She was a mother. Natalie rose smoothly. Your Honor, the animals in question were abandoned in a remote area without access to food or shelter. My client rescued them, sought veterinary care, and has documentation proving attempts to identify and notify prior owners. Furthermore, we contend these animals are not property. They are victims of unethical abandonment, and their rights must be considered. The judge listened silently, nodding as both sides presented opening remarks. Then the evidence was reviewed. Video footage of the SUV. Vet testimony about Whisper's condition. A forensic report showing the foal had not been part of any registered breeding program, likely a discard from an unauthorized pairing. When Natalie called Eli to the stand, the room quieted. He cleared his throat. I didn't go looking for a horse, he said. I found her collapsed in the dirt. She should have died out there. But she didn't. She fought to live. And then weeks later, she brought her foal back from hiding. She protected him the way any mother would. He glanced at Genequine's team. They're not machines. They feel fear, pain, loyalty. That mare chose to trust me. Not because I owned her, but because I showed up. The judge looked down, scribbling notes. The rest of the hearing passed in a blur. When it finally ended, the judge gave no verdict. I'll issue a decision within 5 business days. Outside, the air was heavy with smoke from a distant wildfire. Eli sat on the courthouse steps, exhausted. Natalie joined him. They're rattled, she said. They didn't expect you to fight. Do you think we have a chance? She hesitated, then nodded. More than they expected. They drove back in silence. The sun dipped below the hills, casting golden light over the land. As they approached the ranch, Whisper stood silhouetted on the rise, Dusty beside her, tails flicking in the wind. She whinnied softly when she saw the truck. Eli exhaled, tension lifting from his shoulders. The next morning, a letter arrived. Official ruling. He tore it open with shaking hands. In consideration of the evidence presented and the clear neglect of duty of care by the original claimant, the court rules in favor of Mr. Eli Harper. Custody of the mare known as Whisper and her foal Dusty is hereby granted permanently. Genequine Solutions forfeits any claim of ownership. He read it twice. Then again. He ran to the paddock, holding the letter high. You're free, girl. You're finally free. Whisper stepped forward, nudging his chest with her muzzle. Dusty pranced at her side. Word spread quickly. Local papers picked up the story. Then national blogs. A segment aired on a popular wildlife channel, calling it a victory for compassion over corporate control. Donations poured in. Letters from strangers who had rescued horses of their own. Eli used the money to fix up the ranch, build stronger fencing, install a shelter, even hire a part-time vet tech. But he didn't stop there. He and Natalie launched a nonprofit, Whisper's Law, dedicated to protecting animals genetically engineered or abandoned by corporations, lobbying for stricter regulations, fighting in court. And Whisper, she thrived. Her coat gleamed in the sun. She ran again, free and wild, but always returning at dusk. Dusty grew tall, strong, curious. He followed Eli everywhere, especially if snacks were involved. One fall evening, as the orange light bled across the horizon, Eli sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching Whisper graze. A reporter had once asked him, "Why did you do it? You could have walked away." He'd answered simply, "Because she didn't." Whisper had every reason to give up on humanity. But she hadn't. And in doing so, she gave Eli something back he didn't know he'd lost. Purpose, family, and the reminder that even the most broken things can be made whole again, if someone just decides to care. End of section 3 and full story.